Okay, so in this experiment, we're looking at change blindness. What you'll want to do is go to Blackboard and then go and click on Take Experiments here on the left-hand column, which will take you to the page where the experiment demos are. And the next thing I want to do is click on each one of these links in order. So on this first one, I'm going to count the number of passes. So when you click on the link, it will take you to a separate YouTube page. And I would suggest pausing the video and getting a chance to watch the YouTube videos. If I try to record them while recording my voice, it tends to freak the videos out. So this is where you'd pause and watch the first selective attention one. So what's going on in all of these studies? So in this first demonstration, it's from a paper by Simon and Chabris, and it's called Gorillas in Our Midst. What it demonstrates is even though the same information is presented to people, depending on what you're focusing on, you may not have noticed that gorilla. Particularly, people focusing on those white shirts are less likely to notice the gorilla walk past because they're tuning out anything that looks like a black shirt. According to the original results, about half the people didn't notice that gorilla. That's called inattention blindness. So that means you're blind to something because you're not paying proper attention to everything. Now you want to go watch that second video, Count the Number of Passes, Take 2. So you may think, oh, I caught the gorilla this time because I know what's going on. But even if you're not focusing directly on those passes, you're going to miss something. And so in this video, you're going to miss the fact that the black player left and the screen is changing color. So how does this affect our daily lives? Well, if you think about driving, where things just sort of come out of nowhere, that's because you're not paying enough attention. Or if you're talking on your cell phone, I've run into the posts in the building because I just haven't been paying attention. You can also think about those being a lifeguard. So if you are looking for one particular thing, someone's thrashing about in a pool because they're drowning, you might miss the fact that someone is gone limp and their body's at the bottom of the pool. And so it's kind of a concept about misdirection. If you do one big thing over here, everyone's going to look in that direction and they don't see what's going on in the other areas of the screen, which is kind of how magic works. So now you want to pause and go watch the video called The Reception Desk Experiment, also by Dan Simons, about how we can make big changes in people's visual field and they won't notice. So change blindness is sort of the idea that it's difficult to notice a change in your visual field, like a picture or a screen, but it is right in front of you. So in this experiment, they were focusing on the people in front of them and they missed that it was two totally different guys giving them the different experimental forms. If you go and look at the Flickr pages here, you can download some videos where changes are happening and they're sort of flicking back and forth and you're looking for the specific change, and you'll notice that it's quite difficult on a lot of these. The second link here, the Flickr's Part 2, specifically the mud splat experiments, are sort of ways that it's supposed to simulate the idea of your eyes moving in your visual field. And so you can change things in the visual field and you won't notice because your eyes are moving around, and things can sort of sneak in undetected. So those changes are particularly difficult to detect. And so sometimes people never notice them at all. And so this procedure is called the flicker paradigm. It was developed by Rensink, and the idea is that the brief screen between the normal picture and the altered picture masks the change between the two pictures. And so your eyes are sort of like moving from one thing to the next, and you can't coordinate the idea that this flicker is happening and the change is happening at the same time. But you're thinking, oh, this is all fake, these are just demos, this can't possibly happen in real life. So now you should pause and go watch the movie perception test. Well, movie perception test is sort of, it flicks back and forth between the who's in focus on the screen, and there are lots of changes. So things like the scarf, things like where the elbow is, there's a bunch of different changes. So only about 10% of the participants in this particular experiment notice changes. And then even when you're warned that things are going on because you're taking a demo in class, you still don't notice the changes. It's very similar to the flicker procedure. So when you have to move the camera around when you're recording things and put them together for the final cut. But actors always don't do the same thing twice, so things get moved around between takes. One of the most common things you'll notice is the level of liquid in glasses changes between takes. And the reason that you don't notice this in movies is because of change blindness. So if you're interested in this effect, just Google continuity errors. They're all listed on IMDb, which is a movie database website, and you can find a lot of them. One of the most famous ones is in Pretty Woman, where it's flipping back and forth between Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. And in one scene she has a pancake, and in another scene she has a croissant, and then flip back again, and the pancake is suddenly magically whole. So what you'll do here for this experiment is to post the number of changes that you see in that movie perception test. So how many of those changes did you catch? And then last but not least, sort of a candid camera example, so things that you can find in real life. It's called the door study. So pause here and go watch the door study. So this is from Simons and Levin. What they did was they had a Confederate stop and ask for directions, and then somebody holding a door would walk past and the Confederate would switch out with a different person. So this is similar to the reception desk experiment, and you just don't even notice that people have changed even when you're focusing on them. Okay? So this is all about inattention blindness and change blindness. So if you're not paying attention to the right things, the information doesn't even make it into your brain, which is how you'll fail to notice big things that are changing in your environment.